Have you ever ignored someone's warning simply because you believed they were too ordinary to be right? Sometimes the quietest person in the room is the only one who truly understands what is happening. Before this incredible story begins, take 1 second to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who loves powerful stories. Your support helps us bring you more unforgettable true-style dramas. The rain had not stopped for hours. Every window of North Valley Medical Center was covered with tiny drops that reflected the flashing lights of arriving ambulances. The emergency department was already full. Nurses hurried from one room to another. Doctors spoke in short, serious sentences. Monitors beeped without stopping. For everyone inside the hospital, it seemed like another difficult night. For Marina Carter, it would become the night that changed her entire life. Marina parked her small silver car in the far corner of the employee parking lot. She always parked in the same place. Not because it was convenient, but because she preferred staying unnoticed. She stepped outside carrying her worn backpack. Cold wind pushed against her face while rain soaked the shoulders of her blue jacket. She smiled quietly. Bad weather never bothered her. Compared to places she had worked years ago, this was peaceful. Nobody inside the hospital knew that. To them, Marina was simply another emergency room nurse. Quiet, polite, hardworking, nothing more. She entered through the staff entrance and greeted the security guard with a friendly smile. Evening. Long night ahead, the guard replied. Marina nodded. They usually are. Inside, the familiar smell of disinfectant mixed with fresh coffee filled the hallway. She changed into clean navy scrubs, tied her dark hair into a neat bun, clipped on her badge, and looked into the small locker mirror. She didn't see a hero. She saw someone trying very hard to leave the past behind. Minutes later, she joined the night shift briefing. Charge nurse Linda Brooks handed out assignments. Marina, you'll start in emergency observation until 8. After that, you'll assist in trauma room 1 if they need extra hands. Marina nodded. No problem. Standing nearby was Dr. Richard Lawson. He was one of the hospital's most respected trauma surgeons. Brilliant, confident, fussed. He also believed nobody should question his decisions, especially nurses. When he noticed Marina reading the assignment sheet, he looked at Linda. She's covering trauma tonight? Linda answered calmly. If we get busy. Dr. Lawson shrugged. As long as everyone remembers who makes the medical decisions. Marina didn't react. She simply collected her patient list and walked away. Linda watched her leave. You know, she said quietly, she never argues. Lawson smiled. Good. He had no idea silence and weakness were not the same thing. The first hours passed quietly. Marina restarted 4 lines. Comforted frightened patients. Explained medications. Checked vital signs. She never rushed. She never panicked. Even when others became stressed, she stayed calm. A young resident accidentally prepared the wrong medication dosage for an elderly patient. Marina noticed before it reached the bedside. She leaned close enough that only he could hear. I think you should check the kidney function again. The resident frowned. I already did. Marina smiled gently. Please check one more time. He opened the laboratory results again. A few seconds later his face turned pale. You just saved me. Male. Approximately 34 years old. Penetrating chest trauma. Blood pressure 86/50. Oxygen falling despite high flow oxygen. Condition deteriorating. Dr. Lawson immediately took control. Move him over. The transfer happened quickly. Monitors connected. For lines checked. Blood samples collected. The patient struggled to breathe. Marina watched his face instead of the monitor. Years ago, someone had taught her that machines tell part of the story. People tell the rest. Something didn't feel right. His breathing looked wrong. Not simply painful. Restricted. Every breath seemed trapped before it reached his lungs. Dr. Lawson examined the wound. No exit wound. Portable X-ray arrived within minutes. The image showed blood collecting inside the left chest. Hemothorax, Lawson announced confidently. Prepare chest tube. Everyone relaxed slightly. The injury finally had a name. Marina didn't. She continued watching the patient. His lips slowly turned gray. His neck muscles tightened with every breath. Blood pressure continued falling. The monitor alarm sounded again. One of the tactical soldiers stepped closer. "Doctor, is he going to make it?" Lawson answered without looking up. "We're doing everything necessary." Marina noticed something else. The patient's windpipe appeared slightly shifted. Only a little. So little most people wouldn't notice. But she noticed. Her eyes moved back to the monitor. Oxygen. 89, 90. 91. Something wasn't improving. Something was getting worse. The chest tube was inserted. Dark blood drained immediately. Several staff members sighed with relief. There it is. Marina remained silent. The numbers continued dropping. Blood was leaving the chest. Yet the patient still couldn't breathe. Her heartbeat slowed. That always happened whenever something serious was about to happen. She stepped one pace closer. "Dr. Lawson." He didn't look at her. "Yes. I think there's another problem." "What problem?" Marina kept her voice calm. "I believe pressure is building inside the chest." Lawson continued working. "The tube is already draining blood. I understand. But I think trapped air is compressing the lung." One resident looked between them. Lawson finally raised his head. "Marina. The chest tube explains part of it." She carefully pointed toward the monitor. "The patient doesn't." The room became silent. One tactical soldier stared at her. Another looked back toward the surgeon. Lawson spoke firmly. "We're treating the injury." Marina answered softly. "I think we're only treating half of it." At that exact moment, the oxygen alarm screamed even louder. The patient's heartbeat became dangerously irregular. Every second now mattered. The patient's chest rose once, then stopped halfway. His eyes opened wider as he struggled to pull in air that simply would not come. The monitor screamed again. Oxygen 82. Blood pressure 78/40. The tactical team standing near the wall exchanged worried looks. One of them stepped forward. "Doctor." Dr. Lawson raised his hand. "Give me room." Another unit of blood was connected. More oxygen. More medication. Everything looked correct. Everything except the patient. Marina could feel it. Something inside her refused to stay silent. She had seen this before. Not in this hospital. Not during civilian emergencies. Years ago. Somewhere she never talked about. She looked at the soldier's neck again. The veins were becoming more noticeable. His breathing became shorter. His skin darker. Every second, his heart was working harder just to push blood through his body. Marina took one careful step closer. "Doctor." Lawson sighed without hiding his frustration. "Not now. I think the pressure is collapsing his lung. The chest tube is already in place." "I know. So let us work." Marina remained calm. The chest tube relieved the blood. But not the air. The room became silent. One resident quietly looked back at the monitor. Another glanced toward Marina. Even they were beginning to wonder. Lawson noticed their hesitation. His voice became firmer. "Continue transfusion." The resident obeyed immediately. Marina looked at charge nurse Linda. Linda understood exactly what Marina was trying to say. She also understood hospital hierarchy. She whispered softly, "Marina." Marina didn't answer. She couldn't stop watching the patient. His fingers were turning blue. His chest barely moved. Then, the monitor suddenly changed. One sharp alarm. Another. Heart rate climbing rapidly. Oxygen 78. Someone shouted. "He's crashing." Everything exploded into motion. More blood. Increase oxygen. Prepare another medication. The tactical soldiers stepped backward as nurses rushed around the bed. Marina watched only one thing. The patient's chest. It wasn't expanding. It couldn't. Pressure inside the chest had become stronger than the lung itself. She knew exactly what happened next if nothing changed. The heart would stop. 5 seconds later. It did. A long continuous tone filled the room. Flatline. For one tiny moment. Nobody moved. Then Dr. Lawson shouted, "Start CPR." A resident climbed onto the step stool. Chest compressions began immediately. Another nurse prepared emergency medication. The respiratory therapist squeezed the breathing bag again and again. Nothing changed. Marina's mind became perfectly clear. She wasn't thinking about rules. She wasn't thinking about careers. She was thinking about one question. Can this man still be saved? The answer inside her was immediate. Yes. But not like this. She quickly opened the emergency supply drawer. A large decompression needle. Alcohol wipe. Tape. Everything she needed. Linda saw her. Marina. Marina looked directly at her. If I don't do this, he dies. Linda froze. Across the room, one of the tactical soldiers noticed Marina holding the needle. What is she doing? Another soldier answered. I don't know. Dr. Lawson finally turned around. His eyes widened. Marina. She didn't stop. She located the correct position on the patient's chest with 2 fingers. Her hands never shook. One of the residents stared. Doctor. Lawson took 1 step forward. I said stop. Marina looked into his eyes for only 1 second. I'm sorry. Then she inserted the needle. For a heartbeat. Nothing happened. Then hisses. A loud burst of trapped air escaped from the patient's chest. The sound echoed through the trauma room. Everyone froze. Even the CPR stopped for half a second. Marina secured the catheter. Continue compressions. Nobody argued. The resident immediately resumed CPR. The respiratory therapist squeezed the bag again. This time, the patient's chest expanded. More than before. Marina looked at the monitor. The flat line twitched. Once. Twice. A small heartbeat appeared. Another. Another. Wait. Marcus, one of the trauma nurses, reached for the patient's neck. He searched carefully. Then his eyes became wide. I've got a pulse. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. The monitor slowly climbed. Heart rate. 30. 42. 58. Blood pressure slowly returned. Oxygen 81. 85. 89. The room stayed completely silent. Dr. Lawson stared at the monitor as though he couldn't believe what he was seeing. The tactical soldiers looked at Marina, then back at their teammate, then back at Marina again. Finally, Dr. Lawson spoke. Prepare the operating room. Thoracic surgery immediately. His voice sounded completely different now. The team moved quickly. Blood bags were replaced. Portable monitors connected. The stretcher prepared. Marina stepped backward to give everyone space. As she adjusted the tape holding the catheter in place, her scrub sleeve slid slightly upward. One of the tactical soldiers noticed something. A faded military medical insignia tattooed inside her forearm. He stared. His expression changed instantly. He stepped closer. Where did you get that tattoo? Marina immediately pulled her sleeve down. It doesn't matter. It does. She looked away. I don't discuss my past. The soldier continued staring. I've seen that symbol before. Marina remained silent. You trained special operations medics. Didn't you? Nobody else in the room understood the question. But Marina did. She simply replied, that was a long time ago. The soldier whispered almost to himself, I knew I'd seen those hands somewhere. The operating room team arrived. The patient was rushed toward surgery. As the doors closed, silence finally returned to trauma room 1. Nobody knew what to say. Linda slowly looked toward Marina. You just saved his life. Marina removed her bloody gloves. I hope surgery finishes the rest. Dr. Lawson stood perfectly still. For the first time since Marina joined the hospital, he had absolutely nothing to say. His confidence had disappeared. Not because someone challenged him. Because someone had been right. And he had been wrong. Marina quietly began cleaning the room. As if nothing unusual had happened. But everyone inside trauma room 1 knew. Nothing would ever be ordinary again. Marina washed her hands for nearly a minute after leaving the trauma room. The blood had already disappeared down the drain, but she kept scrubbing. Cold water ran over her fingers while the fluorescent light above the sink hummed softly. In the mirror, she saw the same face that had arrived for work a few hours earlier. Calm. Ordinary. Forgettable. But now people had seen something she had spent years hiding. Not the tattoo. Not the skill. The certainty. That kind of certainty frightened people. Because it usually came from experience. An experience like that always had a story behind it. When she returned to the nurse's station, conversations stopped for a moment. Then they started again, quieter than before. A young nurse looked at her with open admiration. A resident looked embarrassed. Marcus simply shook his head. You know, he said. Most people would have frozen. Marina picked up a chart. Most people weren't there when that happened before. Marcus blinked. Before where? Marina looked at him. A place that taught me not to hesitate. Before he could ask another question, Linda appeared beside them. Marina, administration wants a statement. Now. The conference room felt colder than the emergency department. Not because of the air conditioning. Because rooms like this were built for decisions. At the table sat Dr. Lawson, Linda, a risk management officer named Karen Mitchell, and a man in a gray suit Marina had never seen before. No hospital badge. No introduction. Just careful eyes. Karen opened a folder. Marina, we're reviewing the events surrounding the emergency procedure you performed. Marina sat down. Understood. Did Dr. Lawson authorize the needle decompression? No. Had you been instructed to step back from active intervention? Marina glanced at Lawson. Yes. Ren wrote something. And despite those instructions you proceeded? Yes. Silence settled over the room. Finally Karen asked, why? Marina folded her hands. Because the patient was in tension pneumothorax. She spoke the words clearly. His chest was behaving like a balloon being inflated inside a locked box. Every trapped breath increased the pressure around his lung and heart. Fluids and blood could not solve that. The pressure had to be released. Even the man in the gray suit looked interested. Karen turned to Lawson. Doctor? Lawson stared at the table for several seconds. Then he said quietly, her assessment was correct. The admission hung in the air. Karen stopped writing. To be clear, doctor, are you stating that the decompression was medically indicated? Lawson finally looked up. Yes. The room became very still. Marina expected relief. Instead, Karen closed the folder. The clinical outcome and the procedural concerns are separate issues. There it was. Hospitals loved separate issues. It allowed everyone to agree a life had been saved while still arguing about the paperwork. The man in the gray suit spoke for the first time. Ms. Carter, where did you receive trauma training? Marina looked at him. Nursing school. Continuing education. Experience. Nothing more specialized? Why does that matter? He smiled faintly. I'm simply trying to understand how a civilian emergency nurse recognized a battlefield complication faster than an experienced trauma team. The room went silent again. Marina understood then. This meeting wasn't only about the procedure. Someone wanted to know who she really was. She stood. If there are no further questions about the patient, I need to return to my shift. Karen hesitated. We may need additional review later. I'm available. Marina left before anyone could stop her. In the hallway, Linda caught up with her. They're going to ask more questions. I know. That man in the suit isn't hospital administration. Marina stopped walking. Then who is he? Linda lowered her voice. I don't know. But he arrived 10 minutes after the soldier came in. Marina felt a small warning bell ring somewhere deep inside her. 10 minutes. Too fast for a random observer. Much too fast. At 2:15 a.m., the operating room called. Staff Sergeant Daniel Mercer was alive. The surgery had been successful. The trapped air and blood had both been treated, and the surgeons expected him to survive. Relief spread through the emergency department. For most of the staff, the story was over. For Marina, it was just beginning. As she updated the chart, someone approached the desk. It was one of the tactical soldiers. The one who had recognized her tattoo. Up close, he looked exhausted. Can we talk? He asked. Marina hesitated. Briefly. He glanced around. Not here. 5 minutes later they stood near a quiet stairwell. My name is Sergeant Ryan Cole, he said. I served with Daniel for 4 years. Marina nodded. How is he? Stable. Ryan exhaled. Then I owe you a thank you. You don't owe me anything. I owe you my friend's life. Marina looked toward the stairwell window. Rain still streaked the glass. Ryan continued. When I saw that tattoo, I remembered where I'd seen it. Fort Braddock. Advanced Combat Medical Instructor Program. Marina said nothing. You were Captain Marina Carter. The old title landed like a stone dropped into still water. She closed her eyes briefly. Not anymore. But it was you. Marina looked at him. Yes. Ryan stared in disbelief. We studied your field cases in training. Then your instructors exaggerated. No, Ryan said quietly. They said you once kept 3 wounded operators alive during a 6-hour evacuation. Marina's expression didn't change. And they probably forgot to mention the one I couldn't save. Ryan fell silent. For a moment, the hospital noise seemed very far away. Finally he asked, Why are you here? Marina answered honestly. Because hospitals are quieter than war. The next morning, she was suspended. Paid administrative leave pending review. The letter was professionally worded and emotionally empty. Marina handed over her badge at security. As she stepped outside, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost ignored it. Then she answered. Marina Carter? A woman's voice. Calm. Military. Who's asking? Colonel Sarah Bennett. We need to talk before North Valley decides what version of last night becomes official. Marina stopped beside her car. What does that mean? It means the soldier you treated wasn't supposed to arrive there. The cold morning suddenly felt colder. Where are you? Marina asked. Meridian Diner. Route 29. Back booth. The line disconnected. 30 minutes later, Marina walked into the diner. Colonel Bennett sat alone with a coffee cup and a folder. She looked exactly like someone who spent her life making difficult decisions. Thank you for coming, Bennett said. Marina sat across from her. Start talking. Bennett opened the folder. Staff Sergeant Daniel Mercer is part of a classified training program operating west of Blackridge. What kind of program? One that has produced 3 serious medical incidents in 6 weeks. Marina's eyes narrowed. 3? Bennett slid photographs across the table. Bruised ribs. Shoulder trauma. Internal bleeding. All officially labeled as training accidents. Marina studied them. Her pulse slowed. That was never a good sign. It meant her brain had moved from surprise to analysis. These injuries don't match the reports, she said. Exactly. Bennett pointed to another document. The medical director overseeing the program is Dr. Victor Lawson. Marina looked up sharply. Richard Lawson's brother? Yes. Pieces began connecting in her mind. The unidentified observer. The rushed review. The questions about her training. Bennett leaned forward. I believe your patient was injured by something that is not being reported accurately. And you need my statement. I need your expertise. Marina looked out the window. Cars moved through the wet parking lot. Ordinary people beginning ordinary days. Meanwhile, somewhere nearby, someone was rewriting medical records. Why me? She asked. Bennett held her gaze. Because you recognized a hidden killer in under 2 minutes. And because you know what battlefield injuries really look like. Marina didn't deny it. Before she could answer, her phone rang again. Another unknown number. Bennett nodded. Put it on speaker. Marina answered. Hello. A smooth male voice replied. Miss Carter, my name is Raymond Pike. I represent Lawson Medical Solutions. Bennett's expression hardened instantly. Pike continued. We understand you've had a difficult morning. Marina said nothing. Our organization is prepared to provide legal support, financial assistance, and professional protection regarding last night's incident. Marina looked at Bennett. The colonel mouthed, keep him talking. In exchange for what? Marina asked. For discretion. About what? About interpretations that could harm ongoing national security operations. Marina almost laughed. There it was. The moment the conversation stopped pretending. Mr. Pike, she said quietly, a man stopped breathing on my table. And thanks to everyone's efforts, he survived. No, Marina replied. He survived because I ignored everyone else's efforts. Silence. Then Pike spoke again, colder now. I would advise you to be careful before speaking with federal investigators. Marina ended the call. Bennett immediately picked up her own phone. That was fast, she said. Too fast, Marina answered. Which means they already know we're asking questions. Bennett looked at her. Then we move now. Move where? To the one operator who is willing to talk. Marina felt the old world opening around her again. The world she had spent years avoiding. She looked at the folder, then at the rain outside. Some storms ended when you closed a door. Others followed you until you turned around and faced them. Marina stood. Tell me where we're going. The drive to the military training facility took less than 40 minutes. Neither Marina nor Colonel Bennett spoke much. The silence wasn't uncomfortable. Both women were thinking. One about a patient she had nearly lost. The other about a secret that had stayed hidden for far too long. When they arrived, a black SUV was already waiting. Standing beside it was Sergeant Ryan Cole. His face looked more serious than before. You made it, he said. What happened? Ryan looked toward the warehouse. One of the operators collapsed during training. Marina's heartbeat slowed. What symptoms? Trouble breathing. Heavy sweating. Confusion. Marina immediately grabbed the medical bag from the SUV. Take me to him. They entered the training building. Inside, a young soldier lay on the concrete floor surrounded by nervous teammates. Nobody knew what to do. Marina knelt beside him. His breathing was rapid. His skin was soaked with sweat. His pupils were extremely small. She checked his pulse. Too fast. Way too fast. How long has he been like this? About 10 minutes. Did he receive any medication today? The room became quiet. One soldier finally answered. Just the readiness injection before training. Marina looked up. The what? The performance booster. Colonel Bennett's face immediately changed. She turned toward Ryan. Who approved it? Ryan answered quietly. Dr. Victor Lawson. Marina didn't waste another second. She opened her emergency kit. This isn't exhaustion. This isn't dehydration. Something is poisoning his nervous system. The operator stared at her. Marina prepared the emergency medication. As she injected it into the young soldier's leg, she continued giving orders. Call emergency evacuation. Nobody else receives another injection. And find every vial used this morning. Ryan and the others rushed away. Within seconds the soldier's breathing slowly improved. Not normal. But better. Colonel Bennett picked up one of the discarded medicine bottles lying near the training area. Most of the label had been removed. Only a few printed letters remained. Marina looked closely. Her expression hardened. I've seen this before. Bennett looked at her. Where? Marina took a deep breath. 6 years ago. The room became silent. My final military training exercise. I thought one of my trainees died because of an undiagnosed heart condition. She looked at the bottle again. But now, I think someone gave him this. Colonel Bennett slowly nodded. The official report never mentioned experimental medication. Because someone erased it. Ryan looked completely shocked. You mean his death wasn't an accident? Marina answered quietly. I think someone made sure it looked like one. At that exact moment, several black vehicles entered the compound. Federal investigators stepped out carrying sealed evidence cases. One of them approached Colonel Bennett. We've secured the medical office. What did you find? Computer records were being deleted. Successfully, the investigators smiled. They started too late. We recovered everything. Marina felt years of unanswered questions finally beginning to make sense. The investigators collected the remaining medication. Training logs, medical records, security footage. Every piece pointed toward the same conclusion. Medical reports had been rewritten. Experimental substances had been hidden. Injured soldiers had been returned to duty. And whenever someone asked questions, someone else changed the paperwork. 3 weeks later, national news broke the story. The investigation exposed an illegal medical testing program operating behind classified training exercises. Several executives were arrested. Dr. Victor Lawson was charged for falsifying medical records and concealing evidence. Multiple investigations continued. North Valley Medical Center also completed its internal review. Marina received another phone call. This time it came from hospital administration. "Ms. Carter, we'd like to meet with you." Marina returned to the hospital for the first time since her suspension. The atmosphere felt completely different. People smiled. Doctors greeted her. Nurses applauded quietly as she walked through the emergency department. Even Dr. Richard Lawson stood waiting near the nurses' station. For several seconds, neither of them spoke. Finally, he broke the silence. "I owe you an apology." Marina simply listened. "I let my pride become louder than my patient. I should have listened." Marina nodded gently. "We all keep learning." Lawson smiled sadly. "You saved his life. You also reminded me why medicine is supposed to be about patients, not egos." He extended his hand. Marina shook it. Sometimes forgiveness says more than revenge ever could. A few days later, Staff Sergeant Daniel Mercer walked back into North Valley Medical Center. This time, he wasn't lying on a stretcher. He was wearing civilian clothes. Healthy. Smiling. He walked directly toward Marina. "I've been looking forward to this." Marina smiled. "How are you feeling?" "Alive." He laughed. "And my doctors tell me that's because one nurse refused to stay quiet." He handed her a small wooden display case. Inside was a military challenge coin. On the front was the Special Operations crest. On the back, only 6 words were engraved. "The quiet ones save lives too." Marina stared at it for several seconds, then looked up. "I don't know what to say." Daniel smiled. "You already said it. When you refused to give up." Months later, Marina returned to teaching emergency trauma courses. Not because she wanted recognition, but because experience only matters when it's shared. Every new class heard the same message. Titles don't save lives. Egos don't save lives. Careful observation does. Courage does. And never ignore the quiet voice in the room. Because sometimes, that quiet voice is the only reason someone gets to go home. And somewhere outside the classroom, Daniel Mercer was living proof. He watched his daughter grow up, celebrated another birthday, returned to his family, all because one ordinary-looking nurse chose to trust her knowledge instead of her fear. That night changed many lives. It reminded doctors to listen. It reminded soldiers to ask questions. It reminded hospitals that teamwork is stronger than hierarchy. And it reminded everyone that true heroes rarely introduce themselves. They simply step forward. Exactly when they're needed most.